Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. I just bought me some Octopath Traveler Zero. I don't know why I'm smacking it like a box of cigarettes, ladies and gentlemen, but you know what? I'm excited for some JRPG later on today. But one thing that I'm also excited for is sharing some, I would imagine, good news, okay? Do you guys know that in Australia, they're already starting a social media ban? Yeah, they're asking for ID everywhere. And you might be like, well, Muto, I thought you said good news. What if I told you that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we're at the cusp of watching all of this backfire pretty spectacularly. Now, again, this video could age pretty terribly, but honestly, given what I've been seeing, I don't think it will. So, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube comes out and finally makes a statement about why this shit is so stupid. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, from December 10, Australia, a pretty big part of the world, I would say, and one that basically can influence the rest of the world too, because remember, all these laws are passing in places. Canada has laws like this in the mix, the UK, obviously, Australia, hell, do you know that I think half the United States now needs to show their driver's license to access adult websites? And again, it's really up to the government to decide what is adult or not. Again, I really do think that it's a way to start to invoke things like censorship. Again, you might be wondering, Muda, is it that big of a deal if you need an ID card for websites? Like, you're an adult. If you want to go and access websites, just flash your ID if you want to watch things. Here's the reality. First, it's a real privacy nightmare because, for one, I don't think that any of these websites actually store your information safely. We've seen it with Australia and Discord. 70,000 people had their driver's licenses leaked. Congratulations! And the other thing that really gets me is, obviously, who is it that the government gets to decide at carte blanche what is adult or whatnot, okay? It can really fall up. The interpretation can vary depending on what politician has what stuffed up their ass in a certain point of the day. And the other thing is, I don't think it's great to have a registry that takes away all anonymity from the kinds of websites people browse. The internet is the last bastion of real human freedom, real human privacy, if you choose to fight for it. And I made a video a few days ago showing you how you can anonymously purchase a VPN using things like cryptocurrency without ever relying on showing your government ID. And you can do this almost anywhere in the world. But again, to go back to the story here, ladies and gentlemen, Australia and many sites, including Facebook, Instagram, they've already started to ban users, okay? YouTube comes out and says this law will not fulfill its promise to make kids safer online, and will, in fact, make Australian kids less safe on YouTube. So that's what YouTube had to say about this shit, okay? And here's the thing, I do tend to fucking agree, okay? At the end of the day, the best thing you can do here is actually parent your children. The state should not be parenting kids, okay? I'm sorry, if you have fucking children and you can't raise them, it's not up to the government to ruin my fucking life because you can't decide to parent your fucking kid properly, okay? I'm just sorry, that's how it is, that's how it comes out to be. Now, if you're on sites like YouTube, YouTube basically says you must be 16 plus to sign into YouTube in Australia. Starting 10 December, due to a new law, you won't be able to sign in. Videos you've created won't be visible on YouTube, but you can always download them, love. Oh no, I went British at the end. You know, thankfully YouTube's AI hasn't picked up on Hindi that well, so I'm gonna say something that probably won't get me yellow dollar signed. साले बहन चोद को समझ में नहीं आता क्या करने वाले इनको बिल्कुल नहीं समझ में आता Internet ko kaise ban kare? They don't have any idea, okay? They don't fucking get it. It's crazy. You know, speaking of Hindi, right? In India, they tried to pass they tried to pass an app. I think it's called like a Sunchar like Sati or whatever, like I guess your buddy. They tried to pass a phone application that was, I guess, meant to like track lost phones. Yeah, I love having a government application on my phone. God knows with what kind of permissions. Thankfully, the Indian government, well, the Indian, like, the opposition government and the people were like, whoa, sir, that is something we will not redeem. And I guess that just didn't happen, okay? God bless. Thank you, India. You succeeded in that regard. So there are some actual pushbacks. But to go back to Australia, love, okay? I don't know why I keep going British there. That's goddamn stupid of me. So I love the actual decision over here, right? Like some commenters will say, it's not brain dead decision. Social media companies had 20 years to sort it out. This is the consequences of social media actions, mainly Facebook and Twitter, now X. It's going to happen in Europe, Denmark. UK is looking at it. And of course, obviously, one user rights doesn't help kids, it's just to collect data. It does help them by taking down social media. They get to be social with their friends by physical going outside and hanging out with them. You know, honestly, like as much as you can say kids are terminally online, I have children in my life, and let me tell you, they do go out with their friends, okay? It's not always just sitting on Roblox and chilling out, thankfully, okay? You just have to go into the real world to see it. But if this is actually the case, may I ask why 4chan is unlikely to be included in the under 16 social media ban? So this is from like a month ago, but the e-safety commissioner is not expected to block children from accessing 4chan. The safety commissioner was asked by independent Senator Fatima Payman in Senate estimates on Wednesday night whether 4chan, often referred to as the engine room of the internet, okay? I always refer to it as the asshole of the internet, but sure, I guess. It came after a 4chan lawyer reportedly stating that the website would not pay a fine for failing to comply with the UK version of these laws. So Iman Grant says, no, it's really an image board, when asked whether 4chan would be included in the ban. So here's the thing, right? Like when you look at a site like 4chan, okay, 4chan can have some really naughty things. For instance, right here in the NSFW section, you have a whole set of things that children can easily, unfortunately, access, right? Now look, this is the internet, okay? If you're a parent and you don't want your kid going on 4chan, monitor your child. But you know, this is a platform where people can interact with each other. They can, you know, talk with each other in a social sense. Honestly, I wouldn't even be so opposed that children can access 4chan because at least they'll be invoking, like, at least they'll get to actually have a dialogue with people. Like, for instance, on r/technology, they'll often talk about, you know, crazy AI billionaires saying that AI will end America's debt crisis within 3 years. Yeah, Elon, when the fuck is my Tesla gonna drive me from point A to point B while I can sit and play my Steam Deck? Thought that shit was coming out 10 years ago. Thought we were gonna be on Mars this year. Not really, man. I love billionaires, dude. They're just like, no, sir. Just give us $1 trillion into AI. I swear to God, we'll clear the debt crisis. I hate these companies, man. I think Jensen Huang from Nvidia was like, motherfuckers gonna have nuclear reactors in their home. Okay, dude. Sure, brother. Sure thing. Now, when it comes to things like censorship, okay, obviously children are going to find ways around this. And we've talked about, you know, areas in China, for instance, where, you know, kids to bypass game time limitations, they'll just take their parents' IDs and just flash them and use them to get by arbitrary game limits, right? So obviously I can't imagine that this would not be something that could happen over here. And the thing is, there are actual websites that absolutely should be stopped, for instance, right? But the thing about how they're kind of targeting this isn't necessarily the end all be all. So, for instance, a lot of those Ofcom laws that are happening in the UK, for instance, porn websites were fined £1 million over 8 checks, and they never even responded to the Online Safety Act, effectively telling them to go get bent. There were actually dark situations too, where companies that were making deepfake nudify sites, yes, there are some unfortunate sites where they take artificial intelligence models and they use them to create nudified versions of people, right? I mean, effectively, it's I'm not going to link to it, but you know, it's just unfortunately a reality that happens. Even those companies ended up getting fined, and they didn't stop in any capacity. So really, it seems like the enforcement mechanism involved here isn't really there. It's not really doing as much as a lot of these sites were really hoping for. Ultimately, I think really it's the lawyers that are raking in mass amounts of cash because Ofcom, for instance, is getting sued, for instance, in the United States by 4chan itself, and I believe other websites too, like Kiwi Farms, for instance, is also involved into this too. So again, these are sites that operate in the United States. They're not going to ever comply with these orders, and it doesn't really seem like the UK can do much, or even Australia can do much, unless they really start stepping up their game. Now, unless you're one of these big platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, which are, again, multi-billion-dollar multinational companies, Again, these are people headquartered primarily in Australia. They can't just pick up their actual shit and leave. They make a lot of money in these regions, and they have to therefore comply if they want to keep processing payments and operating in these regions to begin with. Now, when it comes to a lot of these children, right, going back to the under 18, kids, a lot of these children have found that they can bypass by using other applications that are not banned. So for instance, in the top applications for Australia, you might notice in amongst all of these like popular applications like YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, a lot of children have started to use things like Yelp or Lemonade. They've started to use these other sort of tertiary social media networks that are probably less regulated and less child friendly. Not to say that social media services are 100% usually but generally when you're using like kind of the off-brand service, because that's the one that hasn't been picked up in the Australian dragnet yet, these kids are unfortunately exposing themselves into something a little bit dangerous. One of the other things that have sort of started popping up with this story is the fact that people are obviously looking up what a VPN is. Now, VPNs are one of those things that you can't ultimately get rid of. And here's where, again, when you ask the communications minister in Australia about VPN bans, because ultimately their laws are toothless. You can't really enforce them. And even if you block a website, nothing stops somebody from getting a VPN and using it to access the websites. It's just a waste of taxpayer money and time and effort. But here's what happens when you ask, a politician. A politician has no understanding of this.
When it comes to the large majority of some of those apps, Nudify and so on, they're blocked in Australia but still used. And obviously the usual use, I assume, is VPNs. The same way we're talking about kids getting around this.
Yep.
Is there any way to limit VPNs? Is that something you've looked at all? Try to limit their use?
Look, I do defer to eSafety as my technical guide in this space. I guess, as the Minister for Communications, I'm looking at the public policy, and I think even in doing what we're doing currently, we are the first to move on this space, and that's not to say that we won't be the first to move in other spaces as well, but we have to get a balance right. In the same way that we talk about people who are under 16 need a balance between the harms that they suffer online versus their right to a digital life, to creativity and connection.
Now, this is a whole minute, 30 seconds, and I'm not going to play the rest of it because this is a clip where this is why I hate politicians. This is why anytime a politician comes up to me and tries to fucking woo me, and usually it happens during election season, I swear they are the master craft at yapping about they're the master craft at giving an answer, a yapped answer with nothing of substance to it. She has not mentioned anything technical related regarding VPNs. This is not even really technically achievable. Even in countries like China, for instance. China has probably one of the most strict government firewalls that you could probably ever see. One of the best engineered firewalls you could find. And the thing is, even they can have issues dealing with VPN services. Unless they go to the various app stores and request VPNs to be removed, you as a person could fly into China. Hell, you could probably violate some form of technical measure on your device and access a VPN in some capacity. The internet is a set of technologies that is open, and it allows us to connect devices together. VPNs could be programs, they could be apps on your phone, they could even be OpenVPN router configurations that you can install at your operating system level. So unless, you really lock down everything, like the computer's OS, the cellular OS, unless you lock down every single aspect of the internet, you're never going to achieve a total VPN ban. All you'll really be doing is probably be able to maybe ban the service of certain high-profile VPNs, but you'll never be able to really target the free VPNs and sometimes the really shady free VPNs. And this is where it gets really dangerous, right? A lot of children are probably looking up how to use a VPN to route their connection over to the United States or Canada or any country that doesn't have these laws to access social media. But the thing is, when you use a free VPN, you are the product, okay? A lot of these children, hell, adults even, will probably unironically give their information up or allow themselves to be exposed to another attack because they've routed their information through an untrusted server. Remember, the way a VPN works, and you can go to my Muda VPN videos where I show you how I can make a VPN. you can literally rent a private server. And maybe I should make a video about this. I mean, let me know in the comments below if you want me to make the Muda VPN 3, where I show you how to make a VPN and add encryption to it so you can verifiably use a service that is actually private on a VPS you can rent anywhere in the world. There are ways that the way that a VPN works is you connect to a server, you route your internet traffic through that server, and that internet traffic is encrypted, meaning that your ISP shouldn't be able to see into it, unless of course you've got things like crazy deep packet inspection, but then we're getting into like Chinese firewall territory, or unless your information is encrypted from you and the VPN tunnel. But if the VPN is free, right? You can't verify if the free VPN owner isn't just looking into your data that they're tunneling through. That's the kind of risk that I think many people don't technically understand. Some people don't even know what a VPN is, other than it just changes my IP address or it makes me look like I'm from another country. You are actually routing all of your information through. It's like if you get a free shady VPN, you probably shouldn't be doing anything with your personal information or really anything at all through it. When you purchase a VPN, you're often trusting it with all of your data, right? And that's one of the reasons why I can hype up things like Mullvad VPN, because even when they get rated, they have no personal user data to distribute because they don't store anything verifiably because they've bypassed an entire RAID doing it. So yeah, that's one of the things you have to really trust when you're purchasing a VPN service. Now the thing is, you can't necessarily ban a VPN. Like I said, these are applications, desktops, but sometimes, no matter what, you will still be able to access some other server. Hell, if you made your own VPN through a cloud-based service like Amazon, like you just rented an Amazon like VPS, you ran a VPN configuration through it, what are they going to do? Are they going to ban a Amazon cloud IP address? Something that effectively is such a commonplace on the internet to begin with? That's how far we're reaching, okay? That's where we're going in this situation, right? It just, the technical measures that these politicians, these fossils want to invoke are just not really possible without breaking chunks of the internet that are so reliant for not just the government, but big businesses, schools, everything as well. Okay, that's why I personally think a lot of this stuff is going to backfire faster than anybody can expect it. Now, ultimately, the other aspect of it when it comes to these social media bans is utilizing, facial recognition stuff, right? So for instance, on platforms like Facebook, they have things like video selfies. So they work with organizations, in this case, like Yoti, which apparently does like actual age checks. So basically what they do is they take a video of your face, and I guess they use an artificial intelligence to estimate how old you are. You can kind of try this with like a local AI model, just take a photo of yourself and ask it to guess the age. Sometimes it ain't perfect. And this is one of the things where even platforms like Roblox still probably won't get it right in every single facet of the way. And again, all of this at the cusp of organizations like eSafety Australia that do literally tell you that you should be using a VPN because it makes it extremely difficult for the evil advertisers to track you. When you're overseas, a VPN can help you reach local sites in Australia that might be geo-blocked. They're literally saying that you sometimes have to use a VPN to bypass government censorship. I mean, the insane irony on display cannot be stated enough. Now again, ultimately at the end of the day, right, who knows in like 5-6 years when, utilizing a VPN requires you to share your personal information that the government can grab at any moment, which defeats the entire purpose of using a VPN, which is mostly for anonymity. I mean, who knows down the road if some countries start illegally like banning it or start like limiting it or effectively put you on a list just for using these services to maintain your privacy, right? It's one of the things with platforms like the dark web, for instance, too. There are countries in the world like Iran and Russia where accessing anti-censorship tools are not just difficult, but can downright put you in actual danger. For instance, during the war between Iran and Israel, the censorship in Iran intensified up to a point where the internet was disconnected for a few days, presumably to impede espionage-related communications while simultaneously consolidating political power. So anytime the people start to talk against the government in parts of the world, and again, this can happen in areas like Israel as well too. I don't want to make this like Iran is the complete bad guy in the situation. A lot of countries, every country benefits in some way from limiting the speech of their people. Because when people actually have a bone to pick with the government, they're going to talk, and they're going to talk to each other. And when you can limit people's ability to share information and communicate and explain their disdain, and then all throughout that, allowing them to congregate and actually protest, that, as long as you can diminish that, you basically diminish any form of resistance to you. And that's what these powerful dinosaurs want in the world. So ultimately, for platforms like the dark web, in order to actually bypass it, they have to come up with technologies like Snowflake, which is a traffic obfuscation tool for Iran. They also have to come up with platforms like Conjure, which is a pluggable transport designed to stay ahead of proxy listing-based blocking by leveraging unused address space within cooperating ISP networks. So we have to come up with constant fixes to bypass things like real government censorship. Again, it's a bad situation all the way around. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the children are not going to be protected. The children need parenting. They don't need the government to break the internet in some haphazard way to fix something that should be solved in a home. Look, at the end of the day, these children are unfortunately still exposed to really nasty things on the internet, things that the government refuses to actually go after. And ultimately, the end, you can't look at this in any other way as to they just want to grab your identification and start to catalog where you go to. The age of free speech really is at a tipping point. And it's not good in certain parts of the world. Like, for instance, I was looking at Disclose. They actually talked about how in Berlin, cops can now hack phones and enter homes covertly under a new surveillance law that I guess every politician and every political party, regardless of how left-wing or right-wing they are, just let this shit slide through. Again, politics don't really matter. These fossils want to keep you in control, and they will do any means possible to keep you in control. So the CDU, SPD, and AfD approved numerous changes to the Berlin police law on Thursday. The General Security and Order Act gives the police much more powers than before. Now, this is a machine translation, allowing police to monitor telephones and laptops more easily in the future. Because criminals are increasingly using encrypted communications, investigators have to keep up. And that means throwing our general security out of the pool. And remember, these are also criminals that also can utilize much more strengthened services that these cops are unable to block into. All this does is it takes away the general privacy and security we have simply because the government wants to stop terrorists and criminals, which, as we've seen in history, they've definitely have a tumultuous relationship with these individuals to begin with. Again, I don't really trust the cops. I don't trust the fucking feds. I don't trust the glowies to begin with. I'm sure, like all situations, they've done good, but they've also let so much bad shit fly that you can't not be jaded in the process. And I guess at the end of the day, they can probably get away with hacking your phone, because why not? You know, even in the United States, you have organizations like ICE that are buying malware, zero-click malware, in order to infect people. And again, while they'll say they'll infect people that are illegals or whatever, yada, 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 you can't not believe that this technology wouldn't affect people down the road that are just, watched by the government for whatever reason. Now, look, ultimately, it's easy to sort of sit there and blackpill yourself, and I know I've been doing it a fair bit. But the thing about this whole situation is that the ultimate end goal for the government here is to effectively make an internet that is completely monitored, which I'm sure they can attempt to do. But ultimately, the politicians that are trying to run this really don't have any idea how to lock the internet down. Remember, the internet me and you use is the internet that has been all freedom to begin with. Unless there could be one case to make that if we were living in a world that was like China globally, where every country already locked down the internet to begin with, maybe it would have been easier. But the thing is, we have access to so much open source free technology that is available, so much communication protocols that are available to us with a single download, that no matter what the government does, there will always, at least in many cases, be a way to bypass this. But you really have to start using these ways, and you really have to start civilly disobeying. And more importantly, you have to go to your elected officials and tell them to get fucked and bent in the ass. Look, I don't know what way it is that you can solve it. Maybe you can pressure that you'll vote for somebody else, or maybe writing enough emails will get it brought up. But the thing is, you have to fight in every facet possible. But the silver lining here is that given that this is about to go into effect in Australia, And the fact that the Australian politicians don't even really know how to tackle the circumventions is kind of the silver lining in the story. Really, it is. You know what I mean? That's the big story. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it, I am out.